I mean, for decades now, I feel like our understanding of chemical and biological threats has been built on this really comforting illusion.
Right, like something straight out of a movie.
Exactly. You think of these hazards as highly visible, easily categorized dangers like a glowing green puddle on the floor or a blaring alarm in a lab.
A very clear line between what is safe and what is contaminated.
Yeah, exactly. You see the threat and you just run the other way.
But it's a totally binary way of looking at security.
Hmm.
And, well, when you actually step into the reality of modern hazard detection, you realize that line. It's just completely gone.
Poof.
Yeah. We are operating in absolute diagnostic muddy waters right now. The threats have become invisible. And worse, they are actively adapting to, evade our detection.
And that is exactly what we are wading into today. So welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today for you listening is to extract the most critical, frankly, mind-bending insights from the June 2026 issue of CBRNe World Magazine.
It's a dense read for sure.
Oh, yeah. But we're bringing you the ultimate shortcut to being well-informed on this rapidly shifting landscape. And real quick, for anyone who isn't swimming in this particular alphabet soup every single day, CBRN stands for chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and explosive threats.
Quite the spectrum.
Right? And today's deep dive spans all of it. We're talking geopolitical disinformation in war zones, invisible synthetic drugs on our local streets, some really bizarre everyday industrial hazards, and the cutting-edge tech that's designed to keep us all safe.
And, the overarching theme, tying all these intelligence threads together, is that we are living through this dual, really unprecedented evolution.
How so?
Well, it isn't merely that the physical threats are mutating. That's happening, sure.
Hmm.
But the entire information system we use to detect, classify, and communicate those threats, it has to evolve just to keep pace.
So the old rules just don't work.
No, not at all. The old rules of engagement, whether you're on a battlefield or standing in a local emergency room, they simply no longer apply.
Wow. Okay, so let's start right at the top level, looking at the geopolitics of this, because the data from the magazine shows that chemical warfare is being deployed right now, but not just on the physical battlefield.
Right, it's in the information space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like looking at the situation on the ground in Ukraine and Russia, there is a staggering spike in the use of chemical weapons. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense tracked over 13,300 instances of low-grade chemical deployment by May of 2026 alone.
13,000. I mean, that is a massive scale of deployment.
It's hard to even picture.
It is. And what is really critical to understand here is the tactical mechanism of the chemicals being used. They're primarily using substances like chloropicrin.
Okay, and what is that exactly?
Well, it isn't a nerve agent that causes instant death. It's actually an agricultural fumigant. So it's a severe irritant that causes extreme tearing of the eyes and vomiting.
Oh, that sounds awful.
It's brutal. From a tactical standpoint, think about it. If you drop chloropicrin into a trench, the soldiers are forced to put on their gas masks.
Which makes it hard to fight.
Exactly. It degrades their ability to fight, communicate, breathe,
Hmm.
or even worse, the vomiting forces them to take their masks off.
Oh, man, so then they're exposed.
They're exposed to conventional artillery or other lethal agents. It's basically an area denial weapon.
And the timing the magazine notes is really interesting, too, because the intensity of these attacks spiked as Russian forces shifted into a more defensive posture, trying to blunt Ukrainian advances. And this happened right around the time Russian units were reportedly struggling with Starlink access issues.
Yeah, communications breakdown.
Right, so the chemical is being used to physically choke a defensive line, but here is where the physical smoke turns into political mirrors.
The disinformation side of things.
Exactly. Looking at the diplomatic and political narratives objectively, and I want to be super clear here, we are strictly and impartially reporting what the intelligence briefings in the magazine cover. We're just looking at the facts they laid out.
Right, without taking any sides, just looking at the mechanics of the narrative.
Exactly. So there's this fascinating and really unified narrative emerging from very different corners of the globe. You have domestic U.S. figures like Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard and Health Secretary RFK making statements. And you also have Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova making statements.
And they are both repeatedly bringing up claims about illicit U.S. biolabs operating in Ukraine.
Right. But the intelligence breakdown in the source provides some vital context for these facilities, doesn't it?
It does. It points out that these labs are not secret at all. They actually operate under really well-documented, long-standing international treaties.
Like the Biological Threat Reduction Program, right, from back in 1991.
Yes, exactly. The entire point of the Biological and Toxin Weapons Convention is that participating countries submit what are called confidence-building measures.
Meaning they show their work.
Basically, yeah. They
Yep.
open their books, they tell their neighbors exactly what they're doing in any lab that handles dangerous pathogens. And they do this specifically to prevent this exact kind of geopolitical paranoia.
But, I mean, if these treaties are designed for transparency, why is the narrative of secret biolabs gaining so much traction? It feels like transparency is actively being weaponized here.
That is the real danger. The concern laid out in the analysis is that spreading these claims provides a pretext for future chemical weapons use. It muddies the international red lines.
It creates this hall of mirrors where nobody knows what to believe.
Exactly.
So my question to you is, as terrible as something like chloropicrin is the actual chemical the primary danger here? Or is it the informational chaos that prevents the international community from, holding anyone accountable?
Well, the narrative itself has become a weapon of mass disruption. The physical chemicals cause immediate tactical harm to a platoon in a trench, absolutely. But the informational chaos, that does something far more systemic.
Because it paralyzes the response.
Yes. Soldiers and civilians will die precisely because this fog of lies makes international intervention or any sort of accountability vastly more complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, if the global community cannot agree on basic verifiable facts like whether a target is a civilian hospital or a covert weapons lab, the mechanisms that enforce international law just grind to a complete halt.
So data latency and confusion become just as deadly as the chemical itself.
Literally.
Which kind of brings us to the operational side of things. If the modern battlefield is this clouded by informational fog, how does a military force actually cut through that to make decisions?
Right.
Like, how do you fight when you can't trust what you're hearing and the hazards are invisible?
Well, you have to fundamentally rewire your military's nervous system.
Okay, that sounds intense.
It is. The U.S. Department of War is attempting exactly this right now. They are reorganizing their defense into this massive new umbrella office called the Joint Project Manager for CBRN Integrated Early Warning, or JPM CBRN IUW.
Okay, wait, let me push back on that for a second. Because JPM CBRN Integrated Early Warning, that just sounds like the kind of bureaucratic alphabet soup that results in a lot of meetings and zero actual results.
Oh, I totally get why it sounds like that.
Right. Like, are we talking about a real shift in survival odds for a soldier on the ground, or did they just move a bunch of bureaucrats into a new office building?
No, it actually is a massive technological paradigm shift. Think about historically how the military approached chemical detection. It was entirely hardware-focused, and it was really localized.
Like those old bulky sensors.
Right, like the old MA chemical alarm. It was essentially just a really sophisticated smoke detector. If a cloud of nerve gas rolled in, the box sniffed the air and beeped loudly.
And then the soldiers nearby put on their masks.
Exactly. But that data stopped right there. The theater commander, who is, 50 miles away, wouldn't even know a chemical attack was underway until someone called it in over a radio.
Assuming the radio wasn't jammed.
And assuming the soldier even had time to speak. So this new philosophy recognizes that the military is no longer just in the sensor business. They are fundamentally in the information business now.
So what does that shift from hardware to information actually look like in combat?
It looks like eliminating the seams in the flow of data. The goal is to connect the sensor directly to the commander in real time. So consider modern protective gear. A soldier is wearing a protective garment woven with materials that physically change color when exposed to a specific chemical agent.
Wait, really? They're turning the literal fabric of their uniform into a detection grid.
Yes, exactly. Now, the soldier themselves might not notice their sleeve changing color in the heat of a firefight.
Sure, they're a little busy.
Right. But a helmet-mounted optic on a fellow soldier's gear is constantly scanning the environment. That camera reads the color change on the fabric, feeds that data to an AI system computing right on the edge of the battlefield, and that AI instantly pushes actionable intelligence to a 4-star general's screen. And the entire process takes seconds, completely bypassing human communication delays.
That is a staggering leap in situational awareness.
It really is.
And from what I read in the source, this architecture relies heavily on private sector tech advances, too. The briefings specifically highlight this system called ChemSense Protect, which does continuous autonomous air monitoring.
Yes, and the key technology driving that is multidimensional mass spectrometry.
Okay, stop right there. Multidimensional mass spectrometry. For those of us who aren't chemical engineers, what is that actually doing to the air?
Okay, think of it like this. Imagine you want to identify a complex object, say, a really intricate Lego castle.
Okay, a Lego castle, got it.
You could just throw it against a brick wall.
Naturally.
Right. And it shatters. Now, by looking at the exact size and weight of all those shattered, scattered pieces, a highly advanced computer could instantly reconstruct the blueprint and tell you, hey, that was a castle and not a spaceship.
Oh, okay, I see.
Mass spectrometry does exactly this, but at a molecular level. It pulls in ambient air, blasts the molecules with electrons to shatter them into these charged fragments, and then measures the mass-to-charge ratio of those fragments.
So it's effectively weighing the atomic puzzle pieces to find a chemical fingerprint.
Exactly. It identifies the exact chemical fingerprint of a threat, and it can do this in under 20 seconds. So it's no longer about a sensor just beeping into the void. It's about achieving the speed of relevance, getting flawless data to the right decision maker fast enough to alter the outcome of a battle.
That is fascinating. But, here is where things get truly unsettling for me. We've been discussing state-level threats, right? Billion-dollar detection networks. But the intelligence pulls us away from the geopolitical fog of war and drops us straight into local communities right here at home.
Right, the domestic front.
Yeah. Local forensic labs are struggling to detect a terrifying new domestic threat that is intentionally designed to evade these exact kinds of sophisticated sensors.
You're referring to the emergence of the orphines.
Yes, specifically a synthetic opioid called cyclorphine. The magazine has this really intense interview with Chris Thomas from the Knox County Regional Forensic Center in Tennessee, and he outlines this whole crisis. I mean, we are all aware of the catastrophic impact of fentanyl, but cyclorphine operates on an entirely different scale.
It really does. It is estimated to be up to 10 times more powerful than fentanyl.
Which is already crazy strong.
Right, fentanyl is already like 200 times stronger than heroin.
Huh.
So this potency is just a mathematical nightmare for public health. We are talking about substances where the lethal dose is practically microscopic.
Yeah, Thomas notes in the article that autopsies are showing fatalities from cyclorphine concentrations as low as 0.5 nanograms per milliliter.
Which is almost impossible to comprehend.
Right. To put that into perspective for you listening, that is like dropping half a grain of sand into a swimming pool and still having the water be lethal. But the most terrifying aspect isn't even the strength, it's the sheer invisibility of it. Cyclorphine is being used to cut or completely replace fentanyl because of supply chain disruptions in illicit labs. And the users don't know it's there. The street-level dealers don't know it's there. There are no test strips available for it.
None at all?
And when it first hit the streets, standard toxicology labs and even massive national vendors were completely blind to it. It just wasn't showing up in the blood work of overdose victims. It's like trying to catch a ghost with a butterfly net. If standard test strips don't work, and major labs are blind to it, how on earth are harm reduction workers supposed to save people?
Well, this is what exposes a massive vulnerability in our public health infrastructure.
Yeah.
Toxicology relies on having a reference standard.
What does that mean exactly?
It is exactly like trying to find a specific, rare piece of metal on a massive beach, but your metal detector isn't calibrated to ping for that specific alloy.
Oh, so you walk right over it.
Exactly, you walk right over it. Medical examiners were walking into classic severe overdose scenes, but the toxicology reports were coming back completely negative.
So they just didn't know what killed them.
Right. They actually had to send blood samples to highly specialized BEA research labs just to figure out what this novel chemical structure was that was killing people. Clandestine chemistry is just innovating far faster than our forensic technologies can adapt.
Man. And with a threat that potent and that invisible, panic tends to spread way faster than facts.
Oh, absolutely.
And we really need to address a persistent myth here that the analysts specifically took the time to debunk in the magazine, which is the idea that first responders will overdose simply by touching these synthetic opioids.
Yes, the touch overdose narrative. It is a pervasive myth, and it's born from a basic misunderstanding of human biology and improper procedure.
Because our skin is a pretty good barrier, right?
Our skin is an incredibly effective barrier. Chris Thomas explicitly clarifies in the piece that you cannot overdose simply by getting fentanyl or cyclorphine on your skin or just by being in the same room as it.
So where does the danger actually come from for cops or paramedics?
The real danger comes from accidental ingestion or exposure to mucous membranes. So, for example, touching a contaminated glove to your eye, or eating your lunch without washing your hands properly.
Ah, okay.
As long as first responders utilize proper personal protective equipment and maintain basic hygiene protocols, the risk of germal absorption causing an overdose is effectively zero.
Okay, that is a really crucial point of clarity for the safety of our emergency workers. But, I mean, for the individuals actually ingesting these substances, the picture remains incredibly grim.
It does. Because the sheer binding affinity of a drug that is 10 times stronger than fentanyl,
Yeah.
it rewrites the rules of emergency medicine.
Because the normal reversal drugs don't work.
Well, standard reversal drugs like Narcan will still physically work to knock the opioid off the brain's receptors. But because cyclorphine is so incredibly strong, you might need massive repeated doses just to keep the patient breathing.
Wow.
The greatest public health threat here is the unpredictability. Harm reduction networks have established protocols for heroin, and they've adjusted those protocols for fentanyl. But when you introduce a completely unknown, invisible variable with this level of toxicity, every single established protocol just breaks down.
Which, perfectly illustrates how vulnerable our modern systems are to things we just cannot easily see or anticipate. And that actually leads us to the final major theme in the intelligence
The
briefings.
accidental chaos.
Yeah, because the threats to our safety aren't just intentional poisonings or weapons of war. We're looking at a world where everyday supply chains, emerging tech, and industrial logistics are inadvertently becoming chemical delivery systems.
Right, we're seeing this crazy democratization of hazard. You really don't need a state-sponsored military to create a mass casualty event anymore. Sometimes just poor logistics or some stolen commercial technology is enough.
Right. I mean, look at the sheer variety of these incidents globally that they covered. In Chile, authorities seized over 1,000 tons of wood. And this wood had been chemically impregnated with cocaine and ketamine just to bypass customs.
1,000 tons.
Yeah. And in Connecticut, a residential backyard erupted into a 50-foot fireball because a hoarder improperly mixed pool chemicals with gasoline.
Just in a backyard.
In Washington state, an industrial paper mill tank catastrophically imploded, releasing 600,000 gallons of highly caustic white liquor into the environment. And over in Austria, an extortionist tainted baby food jars with rat poison, demanding a multi-million-euro ransom.
It's wild.
Yeah.
But what ties all of these bizarre events together is that our modern infrastructure, our shipping rates, residential storage, food supply chains, is incredibly fragile whenever a chemical anomaly is introduced.
Yeah.
But honestly, the technological threats detailed in the analysis are where the scale of danger truly expands for me.
You mean the drones?
The drones are a perfect example.
Right. There was this case in New Jersey where a sophisticated theft ring used forged bills of lading to steal 15 heavy-duty agricultural drones. And these aren't the little plastic drones you buy at an electronics store to film your vacation.
No, these are massive.
These are industrial machines. They're capable of spraying 40 gallons of liquid payload over a 15-acre span in exactly 7 minutes.
That's terrifying.
The authorities recovered them, thankfully, but the terror potential of combining autonomous flight with that volume of chemical dispersal is just chilling.
And that physical technology is compounded by the digital threat of artificial intelligence.
Oh, right. The Microsoft study.
Yes. The briefings cite a recent Microsoft study showing that an AI model successfully generated over 75,000 hazardous protein variants.
Basically blueprints for bioweapons.
Effectively, yes. Highly toxic bioweapons. And the scary part is, because the AI was predicting novel protein folding mechanisms, rather than just searching for known pathogens, it completely bypassed the global software guardrails designed to prevent the generation of bioweapon data.
So it just slipped right past the safety nets.
Completely undetected.
Okay, so we can't individually shoot down an agricultural drone, and we definitely can't delete an AI model from our living rooms. But we do have control over our immediate localized survival when an industrial accident or a hazard actually reaches us.
Right, the personal safety level.
Exactly. And that brings us to escape technology. The briefings break down how we actually survive and evacuate a toxic environment, and they primarily focus on two types of escape hoods: filtration systems, which clean the ambient air, and EEBDs, which stands for emergency escape breathing devices.
Right, which physically generate their own oxygen.
Yeah. So let me pose a very practical question here. Let's say I'm trapped in a high-rise office building, right? And a massive fire breaks out, filling the halls with toxic smoke. Shouldn't I just grab whatever smoke hood is available in the safety cabinet? Doesn't any filter keep the bad stuff out?
Okay, grabbing a standard filtration hood in that specific scenario is a lethal mistake.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Mm.
You might keep the toxic smoke out of your lungs, sure, but you will still pass out in 3 minutes.
Why?
Here is the vital mechanism people misunderstand. A fire aggressively consumes oxygen. A filtration mask only scrubs particulate matter and specific toxins from the ambient air. It does absolutely nothing to create oxygen.
Oh, wow.
So if the environment is oxygen depleted, breathing perfectly clean, filtered air will not save you from suffocating.
So the filter works flawlessly, but you die anyway because there's simply no oxygen left in the room for your body to process.
Precisely. This is exactly why procurement teams for offshore platforms, tunnel construction, and modern high-rises are fundamentally shifting their safety philosophies right now.
They're moving away from the basic filters.
Yes, they are investing heavily in hybrid systems or chemically generated oxygen systems like those EEBDs. Because in a modern emergency, whether it's an industrial fire or, say, a derailed train carrying unknown cargo, you rarely know the exact chemical composition of the smoke, and you cannot guarantee the oxygen levels.
Right.
You must have a system built for unknown hazard capability, not a system that assumes an oxygen-rich environment.
That makes total sense. So let's take a step back and look at the whole board here, because the sheer volume of what we've covered today fundamentally shifts how we have to look at security.
It really does.
We started in the trenches of Ukraine, untacking how the physical devastation of chemical weapons like chloropicrin is being mirrored by a geopolitical fog of disinformation, weaponizing transparency to muddy international red lines.
And from there, we examined the military's desperate push to cut through that fog by rewiring its nervous system, moving away from localized hardware to multi-dimensional mass spectrometry and AI-driven data fusion. Because as we saw, delayed information is just as lethal as a chemical agent.
Then we brought it back to the home front, looking at how medical examiners are playing a blind game of catch-up against clandestine labs churning out cyclorphine and opioid so novel in its structure and so profoundly potent that it evades standard toxicology screens entirely.
And we concluded by mapping the democratization of modern hazards. From exploding pool chemicals to stolen agricultural drones, we explored why understanding the physical mechanics of your environment, like knowing that a fire depletes oxygen, rendering a simple filtration mask useless, is really the ultimate key to survival.
The mission of this deep dive was to equip you, our listener, to look at the world differently, to give you the context to see through these diagnostic muddy waters. Whether you are analyzing international headlines, understanding the shifting public health crisis in your own city, or simply evaluating the emergency protocols in your workplace, you are now armed with a deeper understanding of the invisible mechanics shaping our security.
And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, a scenario that emerges when we combine two seemingly unconnected data points from today's intelligence.
Okay, lay it on us.
Well, we discussed how clandestine chemistry labs are constantly tweaking synthetic drug formulas to evade our forensic metal detectors, right?
Right.
And we also discussed how AI models can instantly generate 75,000 novel hazardous protein structures, easily bypassing safety guardrails. What happens when those two realities inevitably collide? What happens when street-level drug cartels stop relying on trial-and-error chemistry and begin using unrestricted AI models to endlessly auto-generate synthetic opioids? Compounds infinitely more complex and deadly than cyclorphine.
Oh, wow.
We could be facing a fully automated computational chemical arms race playing out directly on our streets. If illicit labs begin innovating at the speed of artificial intelligence, how will our forensic scientists and emergency responders ever keep up?
Well, that is a terrifying horizon to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the consensus, stay informed, and we'll see you next time.